Hello and welcome to Women's Football Hub. I am your host for this episode. I am Carolyn Kent, and a little bit of a different episode for you this week because I managed to catch up with Jim Gooley, who is well known in football circles. He initially worked with the New Jersey Wildcats, my former club. He went on to work with New Jersey Sky Blue and took them all the way to becoming Gotham FC. You'll hear stories about the likes of Gotham FC general manager and ex-US women's national team player Yale Averbuch West, Kelly Smith, Rose Lavelle, Carly Lloyd, Tobin Heath, Heather O'Reilly, and more. We start, however, by talking about healthcare providers being sponsors for a franchise and how this can impact on player care, especially somewhere like the USA, when medical care in insurance-based systems is expensive. Enjoy.
I will tell you that workman's compensation insurance kills franchises. Okay, so by the second year, oh, by the way, you're not paying X number of dollars, you're paying thousands more. Why? Because you had these various injuries in your business the year before it. It just kills your profits.
Of
and
course.
you
Yeah.
no wonder. And so these are the kinds of agreements you put together. But it's collaboration, and it's stewarding and bringing back that information back to the hospital saying, oh, by the way, your sponsorship has led to 20 ACL surgeries this year that we know
Yeah.
of.
And you'll be able to cost that up for the hospital as well, right?
Oh, yeah,
'Cause
yeah.
you'll know how much they charge.
Well, I know this. Like I got a hip replacement. 20 years in the goal. And you bastards always shot to my right. So I have a steel and nylon contraption in my leg. I set off the detectors of the TSA, but that hip replacement alone clocked out at over $70,000.
Yeah.
Which thank goodness I have coverage. But in the United States, we know that is expensive. I know that our sponsorship from the Children's Hospital at Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital in New Brunswick, that was the first one. The second one was that was with Splash. The second one was with the Wildcats, and that was the Capital Health System. The third one, that was in Trenton. The third one was the Atlantic Sports Health in the Morris County area, because Jersey Sky Blue, which was the W League team at first, they were the title healthcare sponsor. They just happened to have built the Jets training center, but they didn't have female high-level athletes in their portfolio.
Mm.
And they were able to get them through Jersey Sky Blue W League. And then when we became pro, that's when I went to Hackensack Meridian. And all of these were title sponsors. All of them lasted. All of them provided services, physical therapy, MRIs, help with the building monstrosity. And that all went to player protection.
Yeah.
And then you get the phone call from a Rose Lavelle saying, I want to play for Gotham. Because Yale knows that player protection is paramount, and protection includes salary, compensations of any sort, environment, health. Will Rose have her parents at the games? It's all of those wonderful things. You and I have both experienced the opposite of that. And you've jumped around. You did play for the Wildcats. You left the Wildcats. You had an injury. If you just talk about that, tell me about what happened and what drew your choices.
I mean, I think with regards to the injury that I had, obviously in part, it was partly my fault. When I look back, it was a lack of physical therapy input for me and a lack of strength and conditioning input for me. But I didn't touch a barbell till I was 22, and I was 19 when I tore my ACL. And I'd broken my ankle probably about 8 months before, and I wasn't long back. And of course, I traveled over. I was so excited to be there. This was my second year, and I mean, literally, that had got me through the ankle break, like knowing that I was coming back. That was my motivation for coming back. And then first night, went out, played, loved it, had great new teammates. I was so excited about that. And I was a little bit tight in the hamstrings next to game day. And I remember this was a Thursday night because I went to training the day that we traveled, and obviously now I'm horrified that I did that. But, I just wanted to play. And then still a little bit tight on the day of the game, but thought, you know what, I'll warm up, it'll loosen itself off. Within the first kind of 10 minutes, I think I'd basically taken a poor touch, knocked the ball through someone's legs, and she hit me on the side of the knee, and I felt my knee rip. And I was like, I didn't even know what an ACL was. Like, and it was a doctor at the side of the pitch said, "You've tore your ACL." And I was like, all right. I didn't even know how
Okay.
long it was going to be. I had no idea. I had nothing, and then of course I went to New Jersey, and a place in New Jersey, and the doctor told me it was going to be 9 to 12 months, and I was devastated, genuinely devastated. And I'd never had surgery before. I hadn't even had my tonsils out.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I had a couple of choices, and when we talk about player care, the club that I was kind of with at the time gave me a choice. You could use a doctor for my surgery, who was very good, an Ivy League area, and basically said, all I do is knees. I just do knees. I'll do your knee. All I do is ACLs. I do hundreds. And then there was this other guy that they took me to. He said, so I really do hips, but I'll have a go. Your knee. And of course
Yikes. Oh my
he was
God.
he was a friend of somebody at the club, and it was going to be cheaper for them to get it done that way. And there was, and yeah, I mean, to be fair, it wasn't a choice for me. It was literally like, yeah, I know who I'm going with, but yeah, it
Yeah,
was
thanks for playing. Yeah.
exactly.
Wow.
But I mean, after that, you talk about going somewhere and feeling, because I think the big thing that shone through with what you were saying there is value.
Yeah.
There's a lot. Do the players feel valued? And I think once they get the impression that they are not valued, it's never a good scenario, and that's where you end up with abusive relationships kicking off. And I think if you put them first, and I mean, I'm biased. I always prioritize health. I think that if somebody's healthy and happy, they're going to play well anyway. I just think that I think it's detrimental to performance to not think about these things. Don't get me wrong. I do understand that sometimes you have a day you think, I cannot be bothered training today. And it is your job.
Yeah.
But if you take it into other fields, do I always enjoy my job? If my employers are listening, yes, I love my job. But there are some days where I go, oh God, I wish it was a Saturday. And it's no different
This is
for
this
soccer
is like
players.
it's like with everything, every job, every marriage.
Mm.
You
There's
know,
good days and bad days.
yeah. I think I honestly I think about this very much like a marriage. And don't belay the trust. Ask her what she needs and shut up. If she's talking, you're good. It's good. If she's complaining about something, you're fine. But if she's not talking, you're
Yeah.
doomed. I've seen it, and Formiga. Right? Here's his story. Formiga was always dinged. I don't know what it's a Brazilian thing, but the Brazilians are always dinged. Oh, my leg. Oh, my this. Oh, my gym. I need my PT, gym. And I would pick her up. This was 2005, 2006 for me. We were lucky to get her. Gosh. But before she joined, we had both Charlie Nemo and now our assistant coach, Denise Reddy. And Denise now, God bless her, is just inducted into the New Jersey Youth Soccer Hall of Fame this days ago. And now Emma's right hand of the national team. And she was Emma's right hand in Chelsea, but she was our right hand with the Wildcats going into Sky Blue. Denise and Charlie and said, look, we're going to bring Formiga on. She has physical therapy needs from previous injuries. So, Jim, can we guarantee that she will get whatever she wants in PT? I was like, oh, gosh, which means I have to go to some local really good
Sponsor.
provider, a really good provider, and say, you'll be working with Formiga, the four-time Women's World Cup star of Brazil, the asset of the Brazil national team, along with Marta. But everyone knows Formiga is the stalwart in the midfield. But with that, we'll make you guys famous and work on her for free, will you please? But no, there's agreement. There's agreement, and it works for everyone. So my job was to make those physical therapists known for this, and to talk to the local clubs about this physical therapist, and to advertise and take pictures of Formiga getting her legs worked on at this particular location in Princeton. So it's my job to do all these things, because at the end of the year, you want to go back to these sponsors and advertisers and say, how do we do? And that does not happen when you have soccer heads running soccer franchises. When you have former players and coaches who now become either owners or general managers or heads of administering these soccer franchises, their first interest is recruiting a winning team. They wake up in the morning and says, I need to win to keep my job and to keep my pay. And all else is secondary. And that guy, Jim over there, he's the sales guy. Let him worry about that stuff. And it hurts when the hospital says, we would like to have Kelly Smith come to our pediatric oncology ward and talk to some kids that have cancer. And with permissions and sign-offs and everything, maybe take a picture. So the hospital can put that in their magazine. And I'm told no by the coach. And I said, okay, how about this other top player? How about Tobin? How about Heather? No. Now, I'm not saying that's exactly what happened. I'm saying that these are examples. So now I go back to the sponsor and say, well, the coach said, we're going to send a player that no one knows. As a matter of fact, we have an intern. We're just going to put a jersey on her, and you won't know the difference. So this is what I deal with internally. So that's the struggle back and forth. When we get to the pro level, we are no longer there just to win games for the coach. We are there to entertain our fans. And we are there to help other businesses get access and trust, and the trust of our fans. So their business works, so they can come back and say, we're doing something really fantastic in sponsoring Gotham, or in sponsoring. And it's not just sponsoring, we're partners. If you look at the Dove sponsorship of the NWSL, particularly of Gotham, Dove works hand in hand with Yale and hand in hand with Carolyn Tish Blodgett, the chairwoman, the principal owner of Gotham FC, to initiate these great community activations in the Keep Her in the Game program, which hundreds of young girls are taking advantage of. And you know as well as I, girls make a decision when they're 13 years old, plus or minus a year, where I'm either going to continue playing or I'm going to go completely in a different direction.
Yeah.
And they go through these remarkable changes, which in their heads, they are really making these huge life decisions, and many of them quit. Did you go through this?
Yeah,
Did you go through this?
I think for me, I got to a point with soccer where I had gone as high as I was going to go, and I was happy with the fact that I wasn't going to go any higher. The only way for me was then down. I also got to a point in my life, I was 26. I needed to get a job. Soccer was not going to pay those bills for me. So that was when, naturally, having been as injured as I was, physiotherapy was actually just a natural fit. And,
Okay.
I look back at my life, and I'm very thankful for soccer and what it's given me and still continues to give me. But what I'm listening to you talk about there is how important all of the sort of commercialization, the sponsorship, and even just treating your sponsors in a way that, well, yeah, we really value you as well. It's not just a monetary transaction, which I think there are some areas that can think like that. Well, we're giving you visibility, you give us money, that's how it works. But actually, you looked out for them as well and said, actually, if that's a good cause, we can support that.
I learned that working with girls at first.
Mm.
I was 22. I walked into a club and they said, and this was 1979. Title IX was 6 or 7 years old already. Title IX, we legislated in the United States equity in our institutions, our educational institutions, where if You give a boy a scholarship, you must get a girl a scholarship. We don't care what it is. You must provide opportunities in sport and in all aspects of your education, equal opportunities. It hurt at first, like men's wrestling, men's gymnastics, tennis, crew. Didn't hurt football. Didn't hurt
Yeah.
American football. It hurt the rest of the school. Where I'm sorry, but we have to drop these men's sports to because we have 40 football scholarships
Yeah.
for men. So we can't keep doing that. We have to change this. So when men complained about that to me, when I said, well, Title IX is a good thing, they said, well, no, it's not. Here's what happened. I've been shut out. I said, well, now you know how she feels.
Yeah.
So with that said, I walked into a club and they said, well, which would you like to coach, boys or girls? I said, well, what's the difference? I was stumped.
Mhm.
And the registrar looked at me and she said, this guy's strange. And I began working with a team of 12-year-old girls. That was my first foray into training. And it turns out I had a lot to learn. And in doing this, that particular team, that girls team, taught me more than I ever could have learned anywhere else. And when I found out later from my assistant coach, Vinny, he was a vice principal at the elementary school. So he talks to parents all the time and he understands the gist. And he said, the moms like you. And I didn't think anything of it. I said, well, that's convenient. And he said, no, this makes it, the moms like you.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, well, why is that important to train kids? And then I realized what that meant. So with that, you turn the page years later, I am now in the stands of a game in Massachusetts. And on the field are my Wildcats with Kelly against the Western Massachusetts Lady Pioneers.
That's
W League
right.
team. And we're up there in Springfield, Massachusetts. You probably did.
Mhm.
And that is a Portuguese club with a lot of brick walls around it. It's kind of a bowl. It's very ominous in that it's like a bull ring kind of a place. And there's a big bar up behind the goal with a sloping tarmac that comes down to right behind the goal. So you get a bunch of drunk men at the men's games going crazy and throwing things to the goalkeeper. It's intimidating. Well, I'm in the stands watching the game as the GM, and Kelly Smith passes the ball back to her defenders. Now she's up top, and an innocuous negative pass back to her defense, and she was standing there. So all attention now is on the ball downfield, and a defender from the Lady Mass Pioneers runs up behind Kelly and breaks her tibia.
Wow.
Now it was in front of me. Kelly goes down screaming on all fours, screaming, she broke my leg. Screaming. This is right in front of the bench, pretty much. The referee didn't see it. The linesman wasn't looking, even though the linesman was nearby. He was like, what? What? I guess, yeah. He was not paying attention. So they conferred on the sideline and realized they can't give a red card.
Yeah.
So they issue a yellow. And of course, Charlie jumps up from the bench. He's screaming. The fans are screaming at Charlie to tell him to shut up because those fans up there were not empathetic. And then Charlie turns around, he looks at me, and he points to the ambulance. And I just nodded, got it. I get up and I took the ambulance ride with Kelly to the local hospital and spent the early part of that evening going through the x-rays. She's crying. She's on the phone with her dad back in England. And she said, I'm finished again. Because she had been hurt years
She had
earlier.
a lot of injuries. Yeah.
She had a lot of injuries. And this was not her best time, even though we did everything possible to make sure that she was protected and carried as really the jewel of the English national team, if you will. And we were handed a lot of jewels to make sure that they were safe and happy over the years. But with that said, then the team bus came by. It's like 1 a.m. and picked us all up, and it was a long ride home. But we kept her on the roster, and she sat on the bench during the championship game in Canada while we faced Vancouver. Game was on national television, was on Fox Soccer Channel, national TV. I happened to be on the bench, the very end of the bench, helping. But Kelly was there, not in uniform, but she was there with her crutches and her cast as a team member, rostered for that championship game. We lost in PKs, but it was a good time.
Mhm.
And then Kelly went home, and the rest is history. As a gunner with Arsenal,
That's right. Yeah,
and
yeah.
and and now I saw her at the Champions Cup on the field. I'm watching television, and there's Kelly smiling this big and hugging her teammates at Arsenal. It was just it's just nice. But with that said, all the player protection, helping with their injuries and making sure they get what they need was always paramount, which is always why we built our the finances of our franchise on the sponsorships from healthcare providers and those who actually help the players.
Let me ask you this then. If you look back on obviously building the franchise, going from New Jersey Wildcats to New Jersey Sky Blue and then eventually coming on to Gotham, are there areas that you look back on and go, I wish we'd done that differently?
No,
Got it all right.
no. The thing is, the struggle. The struggle was, I'm working with teams in the UK, and I'm working now with people who want to buy teams in the UK and buy teams in America, and they want to know what should we buy? What should we buy? What's the future look like? Where is it ROI? And how can we build a system from the ground up, having maybe colleges, local colleges and feeders back and forth? Would that work? And yeah, you don't just build. The NWSL has a varied ownership ethos or policies or paradigms where rich people have come in and said, let me just buy a team. Okay, let me just go to the league and say, I want to put a team in, I don't know, Speed Bump, Arkansas. And they said, well, how much money do you got? And can you keep it alive? And are you willing to pay all those prices? Are you willing to lose money for 10 years? Or what are you going to do? We have people who have built stadiums and said, look, we're going to build a stadium and we're going to put a team in it. We don't have a name yet. We don't have a coach. We don't have a player. We don't have a name. We don't have anything. But we're going to build a stadium over here where the old railroad yard. So I'm talking about Denver. And this is not the first one. Denver said, we're going to build a stadium. And they sold out before they named the team. So what are we building here? Oh, okay, that's wonderful. And yeah, the stadium will have businesses around it. It'll have condos around it. It may even have a wounded warrior clinic for the weekend where you've got these weekend warriors will come in and we'll build a clinic right up against the locker room in the stadium. So on game night, we open the other doors and we take care of the team. And yeah, we have MRI in here too, right away. So they're doing these things and then they're building an entertainment product to which people will attend and they'll get to see the Rose Lavals of the world coming in every other day and it'll be fun. And it works. But competition wise, what are you doing to keep your team cooking at the highest level for 20 years with talent? Well, now we turn to the Kangs of the world who have built something on the other side of the pond and are building this transfer conduit. And it helps that particular team in France or helps that team in England or wherever she might be and might help her team here. But in the grand scheme of things, you're actually building a movie set and filling with actors versus the real life need of other owners saying, we're going to build proper feeder systems and developmental systems for girls that will provide a pathway to the pros from the ground up. Sky Blue didn't do that first. And they tried to partner with a couple of local clubs. And the local clubs took the Sky Blue name and said, we're going to train our girls using the Sky Blue name, even though they weren't Sky Blue players or Sky Blue employees. And they took the name and they carried it. But there was no collaboration. There was no director of coaching, the director of training. There was no Yale at the top down to as a feeder system. What I see happening in the UK now is what I saw here 20 years ago is that men kind of get in the way of things. And I now find myself more talking to men like the Joey Bartons of the world,
Oh, do you?
um, who say, "What are you doing here, and why, and what could a female bring to the table?" Whatever their opinions might be. And I'm thinking, to me, it's like, why are they thinking this? And this goes back to when I walked into the club, boys or girls. Well, what's the difference? The rule book says player. So what I do now is, I talk to the Taliban. I talk to, via Khalida Bhopal and her friends. I talk to the Joey Bartons. I talk to guys and say, just if you're not gonna do something, just step aside.
You
And
almost do, yeah. If you're
yeah,
not going to do something, at least do no harm.
yeah, do no harm. Step aside. And I tell women, and again, I don't speak for her ever. And I open my talks with that. I don't speak for her. She does take care of herself. What I do is I'll say to her, drive around him. If this guy's going to slow you down, just drive around. The road ahead is open. And this is I was able to ascertain Jess Berman, who is the commissioner of the NWSL. That's pretty much her attitude. Yeah, we do know that there's misogyny and sexism and racism in the game, but that's all compensation for a problem that you should not adopt. Just drive around and don't validate this person with a response.
Mm.
The issues of abuse, however, come from all of this. And we find that something is lacking in this guy's head or this guy's persona, where he has to somehow feel berating the female in his life is empowering somehow. So there's pills for that kind of stuff. And relax, buddy.
Let me ask you this: if you had somebody we've got a couple of independent clubs in the UK. They
Yeah.
find it very difficult. Like they are working exceptionally hard, and they're doing, considering how probably the WSL has good visibility. It has a good amount of sponsors. Other countries, for example, Scotland, we have an independent club here called Glasgow City who have really, really broken down some barriers, and they've worked really hard to be an independent franchise. Would you have any advice to anybody that was thinking about starting up an independent franchise,
Yeah.
especially in somewhere like the UK?
Yeah. When you say independent, you don't.
Not associated to a male branded club.
Right. I
Yeah.
understand. I understand that when my impression of independence is, you don't have to keep going back to daddy for your allowance. Okay, so independence is like the feeling I got when I was 17 years old and I was handed the keys to my first car. Yes, it requires responsibility. It requires money to keep it alive. It requires a plan to keep it healthy. It does something for me. It does. It certainly does. That independence was paramount. So the feeling I got when I was handed those keys and I stepped into my first car was something akin to almost very few things in life is when you're 17 years old or 16 and you're handed the keys to a car. And yes, that's your car and that's your responsibility. You take care of the insurance, the gasoline, the repair, absolutely everything. And do not abuse it. So when I'm talking to an independent women's franchise, I feel that there's a joy in that, and that they make decisions for themselves and their struggles are their own. And they are not a tax shelter for another business across the hall. And I have so many stories from all over the world where these primarily women have come up to me and said, Jim, I go to my board and I say, I need what you give the men. I need that as well.
Yeah.
And the question is, justify it. Why do I have to justify it? We play football. We have a team. We have an away game. We have an injury. We have uniforms. We have strength and conditioning. We have nutrition. We have housing. We have transportation. And it differs not from the men's side. These are the exact same requirements, except for there may be plumbing issues. Biological plumbing issues. I'm being trite here, but yes, there is a difference, and we have it. And you know what? We have to address menstruation. We have to address family, and you might look at that as like it's a weak woman's thing. Well, you know what? I find there's strength in that. I only have a Y chromosome. She's got two X's. She's got something I don't have. There's some strength in that. But with that said, independence, the struggle is you're building the business on your own and from the ground up. And how others perceive you is key. So when I walk into, I walk into business concerns, or I'll walk into families and clubs, I speak from a soccer point of view. I speak from we're building the team, and this very entertaining product. But what the men don't have, they don't have that connection beyond the field that women have to the community, to businesses, to lifestyle, to fashion, to Messi might sell beer because Messi drinks that beer. Okay. But Carly, Heather, Rose live this. And not only endorse it, but understand it and know it. Like putting Dove products on Rose Lavall's shoulder means something way more than putting Heineken or whomever on Ronaldo's shoulder.
Let me ask you this then, because I don't know anything about the sort of commercialization sponsorship side of the game, right? But I've had a few issues recently watching the transfer fees for female players rise, which you more than likely that money's going to be passed on to the consumer, not in a way where I personally feel that we're at that stage where you can start to raise ticket prices because we don't have full stadiums in certain areas. Some of the bigger clubs are doing okay, but the report came out that basically said that WSL is currently making a loss, but it's within the plan that they were building. And I don't know, I kind of feel if I look at the prices for the FIFA World Cup that are coming up, the ticket prices are astronomical.
Yeah,
And I kind of think
yeah.
you're pricing ordinary fans out of the game.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt. I live within a stone's throw of where the final will be at MetLife Stadium, and this year they're calling it New York, New Jersey Stadium, but it's MetLife Stadium. The New York Giants play there. As a matter of fact, the owners of Gotham own the Giants. I mean, it's a serious connection here. And when I go to the club at Gotham games, I'm surrounded by the owners of the Giants and even Giants players. Eli Manning is there with his kids sitting right in front of me. Do I have a connection to the World Cup? Not necessarily, but if I ask for it, I might be able to go. I do not, because of the pretentious, elitist positioning of the people who are running this thing. In addition to we have an issue in the United States with people who aren't born in the United States all of a sudden. That notwithstanding, I look at this and say, you don't want me at the game. And I feel that. You don't want me. You want someone who's going to spend $900 on a seat to an early round game. Just getting there, just having that ticket. And there are 500 million requests for tickets for 9 million seats. Okay. And that's a lot of seats. That's, boy, you should be able to go. And I've been told by organizers here, don't bother. Just watch it on TV. Go to a big watch party. Go to the Fan Fest at Liberty State Park. Be a part of that. And enjoy yourself, and you'll drop a couple of bucks on some beers, but you'll be with your friends. And you'll cheer just as passionately for your team. There are now teams that are saying we should boycott.
Is that right?
Yeah, the whole teams that are saying, you know what? Because fans now coming from other countries have to go through a new level of visa processing, where the visa says you are here strictly to attend World Cup games.
Yeah.
And that is intimidation alone. And seeing, you just turn on the news. I watch the BBC here just to see the perception of the UK of us. And it's eye-popping and it's embarrassing because we are not that. Things are happening that are strange to our creed and our constitution. And so with that said, this particular World Cup is going to be monumental in scope. It'll be monumental in the money it makes. But it is become ultra elitist to the point where we are giving peace prizes unnecessarily to someone who's taking credit, which it's like gilding. It's like gilding a pig. I'm sorry, but we all see it. We all see it. But independent women's teams, independence only as a reaction to the tacit support of the men's side. It's a reaction to that. Why shouldn't, much as with Lewis FC, why shouldn't equity be blind to gender? I mean, equity is just let's make this gender blind. It's soccer. It's two teams on a pitch that have a different profile, but it's still a game we love and to cheer for. I've seen on television people throwing little bean bags into a hole in a national tournament while they're drinking beer for what they call cornhole, which is kind of an interesting name, but throwing these bean bags in, and I'm watching this on national television, or I'm watching the most ridiculous, what they call sport. Okay, there's a market for it. There's a market for sushi. There's a market for pizza. I like both.
Frisbee golf. That's unbelievably popular.
Yes, and that's fun. I love Frisbee. Okay, but there are people, but don't tell them they don't belong. Don't tell them they shouldn't. Why would you tell? With that I had that T-shirt, the little girl from Turnberry. She was like, you can't tell a girl not to play. Like, who are you to say, you would just get out of the way? Don't fight it. You don't want to have, if you don't like it, go on. Don't go on the mic and tell people, don't do this. Don't buy a ticket to a women's game. Or, why are you yelling at these women who come to a men's game? Why doesn't she feel safe this game's for everyone. So it's bothersome to me. So I try to talk around that and talk out of it, or try to tell people to just enjoy it for what it is. Look at the highlights and go and cheer.
Do you know, it's interesting because I went to the European Championships, the UEFA European Championships in Switzerland in July. And oh my God, the atmosphere and I go to men's football. I know what it's like. I know that, especially in the UK, it can be a little bit tribal. That there can be a little bit of aggression sometimes, and some people live for that. They love it. But when I went to the women's game, oh my, there was families, there was, people just having a great time. People were on holiday. No one goes on holiday to Switzerland to save money because it is the most expensive place on the planet, like it's like £40 for a pizza. It's ridiculous. But UEFA put on a phenomenal experience. And it's funny because we came back and the amount of people that said to us, oh my God, we'd love to go next time. Can we come with you next time? I feel like, especially those international tournaments, they're ready to take off. Like I can feel that in, the last World Cup in Australia, was it 1.9 billion global GDP?
Yeah.
It's something like that, wasn't it? So I feel the international tournaments are growing. They're getting there. And again, does that come down to culture? Women have time to plan and they can make it a big event and they can go away on holiday. Whereas following a team week on week on week, when you have kids tournaments, kids parties, you've got elderly parents to look after. I suppose my question is how does the franchise get around that by attracting not people coming across from men's football, but new fans into the game who want to watch women's football?
It's difficult in that when we play, they're playing. I sit and I've been being the announcer at these games over the years in the press box with the press. Jeff Castle is now the ESPN guru for the women's national team and the NWSL. So he has his own TV show at night, once a week. He comes on, he talks about the women's game, and he's very he has been with the women's game not as long as I, but as long as we've had a W league and then a all the various iterations of pro leagues. So he knows the game, and because he's from New Jersey here, he was always at our game. He was always in the press box at Sky Blue. So, and the two of us would commiserate about how there were more people in the press box than in the front row for many years. And I knew why. And I knew that our owners put no resources into marketing and advertising. And the difficulty was no one knew who we were, where we played. But when they did show up, it was like, oh my gosh, we had no idea. It was my job to go to the clubs. And I went to every single club in New Jersey over the years. And I would walk in and they say, Jim, what do you got? Well, I've got the Wild. Well, I've got Sky Blue. Here it is. And I said, get your families here. It was my job my primary job was marketing and advertising, but I had no money. I had no funds. I personally went bankrupt spending my own dollars for the Wildcats, for the Splash, for Jersey Sky Blue. Whereas I said, look, if I'm going to hand the owners $50,000, could you please give me something back for advertising? And I was told social media is where we will advertise. That's the wave, social media. And I'd be like, oh my God, okay. But what about newspaper? And I'd be told no one reads the newspapers. And I would walk in with a newspaper, my local newspaper. I'd open up to a full 2-page spread from the local hospital. And I said, if our title sponsor or any sponsor is putting $1 million a year into newspaper advertising, and that is the market they wish to have, they wish to have our fans tied to them, we should have an advertisement with our hospital logo in our ad. And it'll cost us a couple of $1,000, but you know what? I'm going to make copies of that and not only send it back to the hospital saying that, by the way, 60,000 people saw this ad for our game tomorrow and you're in it because you're on the shirt. But I can also show that to my other targets. I can go to the local pizza shop and say, oh, by the way, you want to be like a big advertise with the hospital in our ad.
Yeah.
And you build on that, but with no resources whatsoever. I ran out of gas, Carol. I ran out of gas so many times just trying to get to a prospect, just trying to get to an office or to a club.
Yeah.
And it showed up. It showed up in my performance. They're like, well, I can't make an appointment because I can't get there. Why? Because if I get there, I can't go home. That's how strapped we were. The key is, and I have franchises asking for help right now. What do we do? And a couple are in the UK. And I said, what is the culture in your community? And a women's team does far more in a community and for a community than any men's team could ever hope to. Men have, and I go back to that gladiatorial mystique. When Cristiano Ronaldo scores a goal, he runs to the corner flag and points to himself and soaks up the adoration. When Nadia Nadim scored a goal, and I have Nadia Nadim stories, oh, God bless her. She'd score a goal. She'd run to the corner flag, kick the corner flag, and turn to her team. Not to the fans. She'd turn to the team. She would eventually say thank you. Yes, of course, she'd thank the fans. But the idea of her scoring that goal alone was not in her head. So if you take that sharing, caring persona and extend that to and through every family that comes. Case in point, I'm in the press box. I look out the back window when the gate opens and the crowd rushes in. They all run to the merchandise tent. Everybody, what is new this week? And our merchandise tent was empty in those early days, empty. And I would go to management and I said, these families, these girls and women in particular, want to buy something to become Nadia Nadim.
Yeah. And you know what? That is it's something that I've seen a few times and I've heard some people who are in marketing and business say is that we're marketing this sport wrong. You're taking the men's version of it and marketing men's football to a part of the population that don't want to come to men's football. And just because it's played by women doesn't mean that they're going to attend. But somebody once said to me, "Do you want to know the best thing about women's football fans?" She said, "Not women, women's football fans." She went, "They love merch." And I thought, yeah, you're not going to see that at men's football. When I go to men's football, nobody's running to the merch tent. They're going to the bar. And a lot of families, if you're taking families, they're not going to the bar because, well, they have young children. And I've listened to some fan experiences recently of clubs that are trying their best. And they go along because the stadium is practically closed. There's no kiosks for them to get anything, so they have to go somewhere else to get food. Now that's lost revenue. And I don't know the answers, and I'm not the person, I don't have the expertise. I'm very clear about that. But what I do know is you're not selling this right. You're almost trying to sell it's the men's football product, but it's played by women. Please come and watch. That's not working, right?
No,
It's
no,
it's not
no,
working.
no. It's the okay. I have been approached, and I have approached these merchandisers and technology companies and social media providers and platforms to get into the social construct of these families and these fads, and to have them engaged at higher and different levels. And this is where getting into the day-to-day conversations and getting fans to connect with each other at all kinds of levels, either before, during, and after games, or within games and from around the world, and to engage. And yes, to sell to them because they wish to be sold to, and it's fine, so long as the providers like a Nike of the world, or or any one of these fashion brands, if their policies and their ethos and their ideas jive with hers, meaning we don't test on animals, so we're concerned about our green space or our carbon footprint or whatever it might be. But if they are socially engaged and believe in the things that she believes in, then you've got a marriage and it
Yeah.
works. And I've actually gone to the owners at the time and I said, look, we don't have any hats. Like, we don't have hats. And right now we have a summertime game and visors, just the visors, so people aren't blind when they're sitting, or maybe they can stay. And why is our whatever shirt we sell black? And nobody's buying the black shirts because they're sitting in the hot sun. It's 100 degrees. Nobody wants to buy a black shirt. Or how about, I did this a couple of times. Joanne, I'm with Joanne some 15 years, and I said, Joanne, wear this and walk up and down the aisles. Just walk up and down and tell me how many people say, where can I get that? When I was with Kodak, I was in the fashion industry in New York, because imaging, getting all those fashions and makeups and cosmetics to the magazine was my job. Does Revlon Remarkable Red number 20 lipstick, is that reproduced properly in the magazine? And it's very hard color to hold. And my job was to color and to help Revlon and the advertising agency get that lipstick in the ad. But with that said, I had an idea for fashion and imaging and what she wants. So we got this orange crepe, kind of a baby doll kind of a top that had a quarter sleeve and a V neck and form fitting, And what I did was I ironed the sky blue logo right there on the breastplate, right below the V. And I said, wear this to the game and come back to me. She said, I took 2 trips during the game and I had 20 people ask me, oh my God, where can I buy that top? And she said, I had it custom made. I'm sorry. Okay. And I went to the owners and I said, we must put this orange top, because orange was one of Sky Blue's, it was like a third color for certain games. And I said, we must put this top. And I was told no. And I was told no. Why? Because we can only sell Nike. I said, Nike doesn't make this top. Okay. If Nike made this top, this garment, I could see that. And it was the same thing with hat. It was the same thing with everything else. I said, will we please put them in here? And I was told, come up with someone to sponsor the hat and we'll put hats in. We'll put visors in there. And I said, okay, I'll sponsor it. I'll give you $5,000. I was a VP of sales and this was part of my job. I said, I'll give you $5,000, but I'll split those hats 50-50 after cost.
You made more than your money back, didn't you?
And no, they said no. They told no. The general manager actually said no. I said, Mr. General Manager, you've got to fill the merchandise tent. I said, our brand is on it. And when that kid goes home with a top like that, people are going to say, what's that? Well, I got that at the Sky Blue game. What's that?
Yeah.
Oh, it's women's soccer. It was fun. And I'm wearing this.
They're
Holy
advertising
smokes.
for you.
It's like it's a newspaper ad, but it's totally filtered. Everyone that is asking about it in a newspaper, you get a 3% return. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. 3% of the 60,000 people will look into it. Maybe respond in some fashion, maybe put a coupon in there. But with that said, the fight was these people who don't understand that merchandising and identity is key. Why does she wear makeup at all? Why? Okay. Ask her and she'll tell you it's my identity. It's who I am. And when I buy a jersey with Messi on it, I am with Messi. I am with his team. And I'm a follower and a fan of Messi and the team. Okay. Great. But that's where it stops. I show my affiliation. When I buy a Nadia Nadim or a Christy Rampone or a Kelly O'Hara or a Kelly Smith jersey hat, I am her, she is me. We are together. It's my identity. It's the same thing with hair color. It's the same thing with the right fitting top. It's the same thing. And it's her. And she's doing it for herself, not for adulation from other people to say, oh, did you know Messi? No, but I'm with him. Okay. But you know what? If I put this on, I know Nadia. I know Heather O'Reilly. I know Toby. She is me. I am her. And it is such a thing that sponsors want to get in on that. They want to be a part of that, that self-worth and that self-identity. And I've told, and this is the key to hospitals, my one phrase I use for hospitals. I say, I've got 30,000 soccer moms in my pocket. Do you want them? And they go, I don't know if we want them. I said, you'll be on the refrigerator.
Of course.
Doc.
Yeah.
And they understand it. Oh my God, we're on the refrigerator.
Yeah.
So when she goes down, everybody goes
there.
to the fridge. And when there's an emergency, who do you call?
Yeah.
Hackensack Meridian.
Yeah.
So we know those guys and those women. That has only been my secret. So if you drop me down into Liverpool, you drop me down into Blackburn Rovers, drop me in there. So that's the secret is just it's not soccer, it's not football. It's identity, it's lifestyle, it's her, it's fashion, it's cheering for her, and you lose nothing, Joey. You lose nothing by cheering for her. As a matter of fact, you actually gain a little bit if you cheer for her because she gives it back. Messi doesn't give it back. Ronaldo doesn't give it back. Nadia Nadim and her friends give it back tenfold. You feel that love coming back, and you know it, and it's genuine. And that's why after every single game, all those women are up against the line there, signing autographs and taking pictures to screaming kids. Okay, and it's different, and it's good, and it's healthy, and it's fun, and I've been doing it for 54 years.
Bring me up to your big finish then. What was it like to watch Gotham FC win the NWSL?
The big part, yes, winning the game at the end, Rose scoring that goal at the end. I've seen her do that numerous times before. 92nd minute, Rose scores and the place goes crazy. The big part, I happened to be on the podium in 2023 in San Diego. I was on the podium holding the trophy. I was invited by the league very nicely. And I'm standing there holding this trophy. And behind me are Governor Phil Murphy, who is also an owner of the team. Eli Manning is over there. He's an owner of the team. But I'm standing there saying, holy smokes, and there's confetti falling and people are cheering. And they just announced the new TV contract is 40 times more than the last TV contract. It went from $40 million to $600 million like overnight for the next year. Not knowing Rose was over there saying, I'm going to join that team. I was at City Hall in this November, after they won their second championship. And I was sitting in the front row with owners who I'd been with for many years. Steve Tamaris, specifically. Steve Tamaris started Sky Blue way back when. He, at the time, was the CEO of Bed Bath & Beyond. He's probably the one that lost the most money, but he stuck with it because he believes in what he was doing. And his daughter, Rachel, was sitting with him, and I knew her from when she was a kid. And Steve and I just looked at each other. What is happening? And at City Hall, the mayor of New York giving the key to the city to the players, the thousands of people that were in there, whereas years ago there was nobody, certainly not a City Hall ticker tape parade. That feeling was such a return to me, in my heart and in my soul, that was just moving. It was moving.
Jim, I have to say the conversation has been amazing. I'm blown away by all of your stories, and it's been so lovely just to hear about somebody that puts players first and understands how important it is for them to feel valued. If you're about to kick off with a new franchise, you might want to reach out to Jim just to gain some of his insights. Please go for it, because I believe women's football is big enough to support major franchises. I look forward to it growing, and we will see you soon.
Thank you for listening to Women's Football Hub. The information within this podcast is for informational purposes only. No material on this podcast is intended to be a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Please contact your doctor or another healthcare professional if you have any questions about anything raised in this podcast.